Howdy do, weaving friends. Do you mind if we just call this like a mini review or a little review perhaps? Because usually when I'm reviewing a loom, I like to make it fairly in-depth. But there are a couple of reasons why I want to do a mini review today. I am going to review, in a small way, the Louet Jane table loom, the 16 shaft loom that I purchased recently. So if you would like to know more about this loom, stay tuned. All right, the reason for the mini review is a couple of things. The main thing is when I test out a new loom, I like to use, it doesn't have to be the full width of it, but I like to do a big project on it. This is a 90 centimeter loom. It is really quite wide, but I've got this quite small sampler on here. That was very deliberate of me because I wanted to test out a weave that I had never woven before. I wasn't feeling very confident about it. That's changed, thankfully, but I just wanted to give it a go, and I felt like it was just too much pressure to put a wide warp on for my first go at that weave, which happens to be 4-block double weave. Something I've wanted to weave for such a long time, but I haven't had the shafts to be able to do it. And then the second reason for the mini review is I don't really feel like I've had long enough to get to know this loom really well. I have spent quite a few hours weaving at it already, even though I haven't woven very much, but that's block double weave for you. It's a slow weave. So I've spent a bit of time here, but I want more time and I want the width. However, I have a lot of you who are really interested in this loom and are interested to hear my thoughts. And so I decided to just share what I think of it so far. And down the track, once I've given it a whole lot of use, then I can do a more in-depth review if that is what any of you would like. Now, you may have seen my assembly video for this loom. If not, I will link that video down below because that shows you how to put it together. One little caveat from that video though, apparently you are supposed to hang these shafts with the textile cord going from the inside out, not the outside in like I demonstrated in the video. That was a little bit of a communication error because the manual says to do it one way and then the Louet assembly video says to do it another way. So for that assembly video, I really wanted to do it all on my own. There were some parts that I was a little bit confused about just by following the manual, which is very common for putting together a loom because, you know, things don't always translate to print all that well. And so for those parts, I would go and look at the Louet video so I could compare and see whether I was on the right track or not. So I think that it was done a particular way in the Louet assembly video, which was also wrong, and I followed that method. And one of my kind viewers actually contacted me to let me know about that, which was great. So now I can let you know. However, I cannot go back in time and redo that video at that particular point to let people know. It's always a bummer when that happens. It's like, I feel responsible, you know? But hopefully if you are going to assemble one of these, you're watching this video now and you go, okay, right, so I need to put the cords from the inside out. Yes. All right, so I'm just going to launch into talking about the loom and my thoughts on it so far, the things that I have really liked, the things that I maybe would change if I could, and we'll go from there. So once you've actually got the loom assembled, the assembly is kind of the hard part. It's challenging. It was challenging for me. I've talked before how, you know, I find it difficult to put looms together. That's maybe just me. But it's a relief once you've got it all set up. Now, one thing that I will say is, if you're considering getting one of these looms, strongly consider also getting the floor stand, as I have done. It makes a huge difference. When I had this loom on my table putting it together, I was just thinking, you know, this would be difficult to weave on if I didn't have the floor stand. because I don't like to weave standing up. I know a lot of table weavers, they're happy to stand there for hours and weave. That would just kill my back and I wouldn't be able to do it. So for me, the floor stand was a very worthwhile investment. Yes, it is additional money. It doesn't come with the loom. So it's something that you would have to factor into your budget if you were going to go that way. But for me, it's well worth it. The stand also, it's really sturdy, it's strong. I've seen some people online and heard them talking about the stand not being stable enough when they are beating. And I kind of wonder about that. Now, like I've said, I've only got a smaller warp on here, not a very wide width, but I haven't had a problem with my stand moving when I beat. And so it just kind of makes me wonder, well, are those people, do they have an older stand that was different? Do they beat really, really hard and maybe don't need to? I'm not sure. I'm just saying it hasn't been an issue for me. The stand also, it's very easy to construct and it's very simple. So that's the quick part to get together at the end, which is kind of nice. One thing that I would sort of like is to have some little wheels on the bottom of the stand. Now, I don't know whether that would really work very well, what kind of wheels you would have to take the weight of the loom, and you know, you'd need little brakes on it that were really good so that it absolutely did not move when you didn't want it to. But for me personally, I would love to have just some little wheels that I could engage to move this loom around easily. That would be helpful for the space that I have for it. I know for a lot of other people that wouldn't be an issue, that you would just set it up and leave it in a particular space. But for me, I had to actually reorganize my whole studio in order to fit this loom in the first place. And if you've seen my studio before, you know that I've got a whacking great billiard table in one part of my studio that takes up a lot of space and that people do actually use from time to time. So it would be helpful for me to be able to move this loom more easily with little wheels. But I mean, that's really just a side issue. That's like one of the little things that I would just say, oh, you know, if I could wave my wand and have this, I would have that. The stand also comes with some extra holes in the upright parts, and those holes are for additional warp beams if you wanted to have that additional warp space for rolling on a much longer warp. I won't be investing in that myself because I just don't see a need for it for myself. But I think it's a good option to have, particularly if this is going to be your only loom. One of the great things about getting another Louet loom for me is that I've already had my Louet David for such a long time and I'm so familiar with it. And so when you buy another Louet loom, you kind of know where things are going to be. You know what to expect because a lot of things are laid out the same. And I guess they're laid out with like a Louet mindset, which you already understand if you've been using another of their looms. And so even though the setup took me a while and wasn't all that easy, I did understand for the most part what I was doing and what it was going to lead to, what the outcome was going to be. And that's been the same for actually weaving on the loom, warping the loom and everything. Because there are particular things that Louet does, and even just the look and the feel of the wood and those kind of things that you come to expect from a company are the same throughout their looms. So one of those things for me has always been the quality. I feel that Louet products are really good quality. They use really good solid hard wood. They lacquer and finish everything beautifully. The components are always strong and I don't have any concerns about any of it. I just know that it's a well-made loom. So we'll go into some more specifics about the loom now, and I think I'll start from the top and work my way sort of from the back to the front to the bottom, if that makes sense. So at the top we have the Louet rattle, which is one of those things that you will see on most Louet looms. This one, unlike my David, comes with some rattle covers, which is very handy because one of the annoying things about having a rattle on the top of your loom that you're using, and this particular type of rattle, is that the parts of the warp that you are not placing in the rattle at the time can sort of catch around places where they're around the spaces where they're not supposed to. So having the covers to cover up the parts that you're not actually using is very helpful. If you don't have the covers, and I have an extra section of cover that I haven't put on here obviously because I was using that part. If you don't have any covers, say you have, you're like me and you have an older Louet loom that didn't come with covers, you can use something like a piece of paper or pieces of paper and put them over the rattle, cover the parts that you're not using, and then you don't have that annoying thing of warp threads catching where you don't want them to. So one thing that you're going to want with a loom like this is clearance behind the loom. Now I've only got a fairly small amount of distance here, but it's generous enough that I don't have to worry. I know how much space I need behind a loom while I'm dressing it, and this is just fine. And because the rattle is on top, you're standing fairly close to the loom the whole time and sort of doing everything from this perspective, so you don't need a ton of room. So this is the back cloth beam, obviously that your warp travels over, and then it travels down and onto the warp beam at the back. The floor stand, I find it makes it a really nice height for placing the threads in the rattle. My David is a little higher, and also the back part of the David is a little longer, and so I feel like I'm leaning just slightly when I'm using the rattle on the David, but not so with this one. This is like quite ergonomic to use. Just the right height for me. I'm a bit of a shorty. I'm about 163 centimeters, whatever that is in feet, not quite sure. I always get it wrong when I say it, so if you really want to look it up, you can. But it's a good height for me, and everything's kind of within reach. So at the back here and at the front here, we have the metal ratchets, and they're exactly the same at the front and the back, and they have a wooden knob for turning, which is comfortable to turn. I really like having a metal ratchet. It's very strong, and the catches are also metal. So these, tensioning your warp and winding your warp on is really easy with these. I really like that about the Louet looms. So if I want to let a little tension off, I just have to flip that up, let it go to wherever I want to. I can tighten the tension at the back, or likewise, I can let some tension off at the back. And tighten it at the front. This loom does have quite a depth, so you're not going to be able to sit here and retension the loom. I mean, I can easily reach the front one. I can't quite reach the back one, so I'd be getting up to do that, which isn't a problem, it's just something to know. With my David loom, I have a friction brake, so I can actually just adjust the lever to retension. But this is a table loom, it's something a bit different. The beater, we're going to talk about next. I just need to move my boat shuttles out of the way momentarily. My beautiful handmade Pickers Ridge boat shuttles that I love to use. The beater is an overhung beater, and this is a common type of beater that you would see on a table loom. A floor loom is more likely to have all kinds of beaters. There's all different ones. And for the most part, I think this beater is great. I've had two minor issues with it. One was when I was actually putting the beater together, I found it very hard to adjust the beater to the point where I could get it square and straight on, so that when I was beating that it was just coming straight. I had, unfortunately, scraping at the sides while I was trying to adjust that, and I felt like that was unavoidable. I didn't want to scratch up the insides of my loom, especially say from a resale point, if I ever decide to resell this loom. The scratches on the inside are not ideal. So I didn't feel like it was that simple to adjust the beater to get it just right. And I've certainly adjusted this type of beater for table looms before and haven't had the same issue, or if I have had an issue of not quite getting it square enough, it hasn't scratched up the inside of the loom. See, the Louet parts, they're metal, and so if you don't have it just right, it is going to scratch off that lacquer, unfortunately. So that did happen to me, and I feel bad about it because, you know, you just put this beautiful new loom together that's freshly lacquered and the pieces are all immaculate, and then in one kind of movement you've scratched it. So I wasn't thrilled about that. I felt like I had done everything correctly for that not to happen. Louet do give the tip of lifting the beater right up and sort of jiggling it a little bit from side to side to get it to sit more straight. And I tried that, and I tried a bunch of different things. I tried tightening and loosening and a few different things, and it really took a little bit to be able to get it to the point where it would swing freely. Now that I have the warp on, it's swinging beautifully. It hasn't scraped on the sides at all. I feel like the warp really helps to center it, but at the same time, I wish that wouldn't have happened initially. The second thing about the beater that I'm not 100% sold on thus far is the shuttle race. The shuttle race actually comes with the loom now. It used to be a separate purchase, but it comes with it now. You can install that. At the time you would have seen in my assembly video, I actually put the beater together, and then at the very end I realized that there was a shuttle race to go on. I hadn't actually known that there was a shuttle race included, so I thought, okay, well, I don't really need the shuttle race on because I'm only doing a short width to start with of warp. However, I wanted to try it out so that I could tell all of you about it, whether it was worth it or not. So while installing the shuttle race wasn't terribly difficult, it did involve taking off the bottom part of the beater and putting the regular bottom part of the beater aside. Whereas say with the Ashford shuttle race, you actually just attach it with some elastic. It's very easy to put on and remove. With this one, if I want to take it off, I need to unscrew stuff and put the other part of the original beater back on. All that to say, again, I can't really comment on the shuttle race whether it's helped me or not because the width of the warp is not wide enough. It's really more for wider widths. It's really for those times when you've got a wider warp on, you might want to be really sure that there's going to be no shuttle diving. So I can imagine once I do get that wider warp on that it will be helpful in that regard. But there's one more thing that I find a bit of a nuisance about it is you have to be careful about how far forward you advance your warp, because it gets to a certain point, and because of the shuttle race, if you have it advanced further towards you than this, it'll actually hit the front cloth beam. So it gives you a little bit of extra space. And then, so I guess I feel like it's a bit of, it's not as much control as you could have. And then while you're bringing it forward, you can see that it's pushing up under the cloth, and that also kind of gets in the way. It doesn't let you beat as close. So you've got to be more intentional about how far forward you're advancing your warp. Now, I don't think that I'm excessive in the amount that I advance my warp forward. I'm usually pretty conservative, and I like to advance little and often. I always use that in my weaving, but that shuttle race does still get in the way. So I will leave it on there for now until I do a wider warp. And if I do my wider warp and then feel that I could live without the shuttle race, I will take it off. Maybe when I take it off, I'll find that it's actually really helpful and I should have left it on. We'll see. So that's another long-term thing that I would need to test out. Now, having pointed out those things about the beater, now I'll talk about the things that I do like about it, because I do think it's a great beater. I really like the width of the top bar, so it's very comfortable to use. I like how easily it swings. It's really simple. You don't need to have a great thwacking beat. You can really just press and it works very nicely. And once you've got it hung perfectly, it just swings back and forth beautifully, no problems at all. And then another handy thing is if you press it back, it will stay there. So a lot of other table loom beaters are not like that. They will swing back forward and kind of get in your way because that gives you a smaller shed then. So before you actually go to weave, let's say I'm opening this shed, I can pop that back and it gives me that much extra space to weave in, and I don't have to worry about having to hold the beater back while I'm passing the shuttle through. I like that a lot. And I have this particular thing where if the top bar is really, really thick, I just don't like it. I don't use it. I don't find it so comfortable to weave with. And for me, this is just perfect. I don't even have to think about it. I can beat with one hand, I can beat with two, I can beat with the right or the left. It's very easy, very user-friendly. Now we'll have a quick look through to the shafts. I was actually surprised. I felt like a 16 shaft loom would actually be bulkier, but the way that they're hung, they are actually very compact, and also they've put the first 8 shafts on the front, the second 8 are on the back, and that just works particularly well. They're separated by the middle part of the castle, and that just it seems to be a really good arrangement because there's no like sticking or rubbing of shafts against each other as you're operating them. They all move very smoothly, very nicely. And also with the rolling system, you can see the rollers here with the textile cords, and there are rollers underneath as well. Everything just goes really quite nicely. So when I actually push my levers down, of course they stay there, and they'll stay there for as long as I need them to. You can notice from my shafts that they're not perfectly balanced. I fiddled around with them for quite a while when I was doing the assembly, and I didn't get them perfect. And I was like, well, okay, you know, I'm just going to fix them as I go if it's an issue. But it hasn't even been an issue yet. The sheds are so nice and open that having that slight difference in the height of some of the shafts has not been a problem for me. And then when I want to put the shafts down, sorry, I've got my threads in the way, then I can just let them go back. I know some people flick them back. I don't like that. It's kind of a pet peeve for me because I'm like, come on, just be gentle with it, you know, like, is there really any need to flick your shafts and make it rough when you can just gently do it gently? Be kind to your loom, and your loom will last a long time and everything will go smoothly. Be rough with it and things might happen. I don't know. Maybe it's built so well that you can be a bit rough with it, but I just prefer not, you know? While we're at the levers, I'll just have a little chat about some things people have asked me, mainly about like, how are you going to keep track of 16 shafts with 16 levers and all the combinations? Well, I know that a lot of weavers like to number their levers, and that's fine. It's a good solution. I haven't done that just because I don't know, I haven't really felt it necessary so far. If I really felt that I needed them, I would, but because I'm doing okay without numbering them, I'd rather just leave them all clean and nice. I guess it's the difference between, you know, putting little stickers on your piano keys or just learning the keys without having that guide. It depends on what you need as a learner. Some people will need the stickers, some people won't. But something that has really helped me to find the right levers while I've been weaving this block double weave is to think of my levers in terms of blocks as well. So when you're weaving a block weave, you are weaving, like, there are threads that go together. So for this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are my these are my first block, so we could call it block A. 5, 6, 7, 8, block B. 9, 10, 11, 12, block C. 13, 14, 15, 16, block D. So because I'm already weaving the block weave, in my mind, somehow I'm associating these levers as blocks, and that's pretty easy for me to do. So I can see here straight away if I need shaft 4, oh, I'm right there, halfway through the end. You know, I'm sort of dividing it into those blocks of 4 because there are 16, and so I find it easy enough to do that. Some people might be like, well, what? What? That's fine. We're all different, and we need to do whatever works for us. But that is working for me at the moment. I still, of course, I have to follow like a treadling chart and a tie-up chart because there are a lot of shafts involved here and a lot of different combinations. But as long as I've got my chart to follow, I'm all good. It's just slow. So here we are at the front of the loom. Just wanted to show you a different angle. So this is the front cloth beam. The cloth beams are a little bit different to some in that they are like these, they're flat, but they're angled outwards slightly. That's another Louet-ism, if I can call it that. For some other looms, you know, you would have like a fairly thick beam here that would just be kind of smoothed, rounded the corners off. So that's a little bit different, but it's good. It works fine, great tension. And then the front roller beam is right on the inside there, and that's pretty easy to set up too. If I would give you one reminder as a newbie table loom weaver, or floor loom, or any loom, rigid heddle loom as well, the same principle applies. Make sure when you're starting with your warp that your apron rod, which you can't see here because it's already been rolled in there, comes up and over that front beam. And then at the back, you want it also to come up and over towards you, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get a shed. Important to know. Let's talk about the size for a minute. You might have noticed from other videos or pictures that you have seen of Jane table looms that some of them will have like a handle on the side here so that you can pick it up when it's folded up and take it with you. You're not really going to do that with this loom. It's really quite large and it's heavy. So it's not a really portable loom. If portability is important to you, you'd have to look at going with the smaller sizes. Comes in a 70 centimeter. I think it comes smaller than that as well, but I'm not sure for the 16 shafts. This part here of the beater, you can fold this down. So you can reduce the height. The castle comes right down if you need it to, and it's quite easy to fold it down, but still it's going to be like a 2-person job to get it into your car, and then you'd have to be sure that you had the kind of car that would actually fit this in the back. I also want to talk for a second about my seating setup. There is a bench available with this loom. For me, if I have a choice about my type of seating arrangement, I'll always choose a chair on wheels that's padded and cushioned and contoured rather than a bench. I have to use a bench for my David here behind us. I have to use a bench for my big floor loom as well. And that's because with the legs and the rollers on a chair like this, you can't get up near the treadles close enough. There's a bar that comes across at the bottom. It's going to stop you from moving right in, whereas the bench seat has legs that can kind of fit underneath that. And so you're okay on the bench. I don't mind weaving on the bench, but I would choose something like this if I could. It's with the back support. Back support is important to me. So I really, really like weaving at this loom because I can get so close to it. With my chair, you know I love my adjustable chair, right? I've talked about it a bunch on this channel. So I can make it a little taller. I could make it shorter if I wanted to, but about here is great. How I like to seat myself at a loom is to have it pressing right up against me, pretty much as close as I can get. And the height, I like the height of the actual cloth to be not quite at the top of my ribs, but getting there. So I'm actually just a tiny bit high at the moment. There we go. And something that I've found with other table looms that I've had, if I either have to put them on a table that's not adjustable, or if I've been standing to use them, I've just found it really challenging to get close enough. But with this loom, you can see I'm tucked in, right? I feel cozy, and I really am very comfortable weaving at this loom. And with table looms, I have often found that they give me sore shoulders operating the levers and a sore neck as well. I haven't had that with this loom because I can tuck myself in so close. I can adjust my height, and the levers are very close to me. It's not like I'm reaching to get to them. They're all just so close, so easy to operate. I don't need to exert much force on the levers, and then the beater is right there, and like I said, I barely need to think about it. So the comfort level for this loom is fabulous. Another little thing that I like, though absolutely not essential, it's just a little perk, is the size of the shelf on top of the castle. It's not necessarily specifically a shelf, but it is a space that, you know, it contains the first 8 shafts underneath, and then it contains the rattle. But you can do things like chuck a shuttle or 2 up here. You can keep a threading hook up here. It's handy for just little things that you're using, maybe a pair of scissors here and there. It just gives you that little bit of space. Another thing that I wanted to mention that I would change if I could, I would make this front beam removable. On my floor looms, on both of my floor looms, the front beam is removable. Why that is important? Well, when it comes to the threading of the shafts, if you can take off that front beam, you can get much closer to the shafts while you're threading. The first 8 shafts are not a problem. They are easily within reach for me, mainly because I can tuck myself up so much with the loom. When we get to the back 8 shafts, it gets to be a bit of a stretch. I also find it difficult to see when I'm threading. I ended up putting all of my shafts up so that they're just a little bit more out of the way so that I could see what I was doing with my warp. So I had my warp on the cross sticks at the back, on the least sticks, and was feeding off the warp thread as I always do for the threading in order. But it's really hard to see. I don't know if there is a way around that. If you have any ideas, I'm absolutely open to them. But I hope you understand what I mean when I've got all the heddles there to thread. I'm just putting the shafts up so you can see how I had it. And I'm sort of looking around the shafts, trying to see where my next warp thread is feeding off. So that visibility just isn't there. And whether I put the shafts up or down, it's a little bit better with the shafts up, but when they're down, it's like sometimes the back shafts are blocking the view of the warp, sometimes the front shafts are blocking the view of the warp. So I don't really know how I can improve that situation, but I found that difficult in threading for this project. Also, while I was threading, the beater was not easily removable, so I was like, I really don't want to have to remove this beater for the threading and then screw it all back in and then run the risk of it being not square again. So what I did was I took the beater and I flipped it up and over, and it only went to a certain point. It didn't go right back over onto the warp where I was working at the back. It sort of stopped at a point, but it stayed there, it settled there. And I wasn't sure whether that was what I was supposed to be doing, if it was okay, if it was going to stress the arms of the beater at all. But that was my solution for having the beater out of the way so that I could thread the heddles. And then when I had all of the heddles threaded before the warp was actually tied on, then I just gently brought the beater back, and then I was able to slay the reed. Slaying the reed was easy and good because I'm so close to the front shafts. So I'm just bringing the threads through and I'm sitting quite comfortably while I'm doing that. For me, back problems really occur when there's any reaching. and that's like a continual strain and a continual movement that my back particularly hates. And so threading like the very back shafts when you get to there, especially if you have a bit of visibility problem, it wasn't easy. I also had 2 colors in my warp that were alternating. That's a part of double weave as well. So it was really important that I had the order of the color right. So it was important that I could see in order to do that. So that's a bit of a problem. Please come at me with suggestions if you have any. If you want to know more about gorgeous block double weave, which is, oh, my heart, it is just where I want to be with weaving. So I'm so thrilled to finally be able to do it. In my latest Kindred Weavers video, which is my YouTube membership channel, I talk about block double weave and explain a little bit more about the actual project that I'm weaving here, as well as showing plenty of the weaving and that kind of thing. So if that particularly interests you, you can check that out. It's $5 a month. And generally you get 2 extra videos a month that are not aired here on my free YouTube channel. Now, after 10 years plus as a YouTuber and over 500 videos at the making of this particular video, I feel like I have the authority, if you like, to preempt some questions. I almost know what you're thinking before you say it. It just happens after a while. So I know that at least somebody, if not a few people, are going to ask the question about a floor loom in comparison to something like this table loom. And anytime that I answer one of these questions, take it with a grain of salt, because it's just my opinion. And to be honest, I'm a floor loom girly. I love them. And I would always pick a floor loom over a table loom. However, this table loom has changed my ideas about that a little bit. Here's the clincher for me. If I was going to choose between a 16 shaft table loom and a 16 shaft floor loom, well, the first thing I want to say is this feels very much like a floor loom when you are weaving on it, like a light, compact floor loom, similar to how my David is. It's not a huge, heavy, clunky floor loom. So it's a light, simple kind of weaving experience. And you feel that very much with a table loom like this. Because of the way the stand is, because of the size of it, because of the setup, it does feel quite a lot like weaving on a floor loom. The main difference is the levers. Let's say that for each weaving sequence for the particular weave structure I'm working on here, let's say that I have 8+ shafts engaged for every single pass. And that changes with each pass. I mean, sometimes you'll come back to the same combinations, obviously, because you have repeats. So for weaving on the table loom, I'm putting down the 8 levers. I'm looking at my chart. I'm going this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Then I'm actually weaving the pick. I'm putting my shuttle down and I'm organizing for the next pass, the next combination. So I'm putting all those ones back and I'm reorganizing them. If I had the same setup, the same pattern that I wanted to weave on a 16 shaft floor loom, at the very beginning, before I even begin weaving, I'm setting all of those shafts up to 1 treadle for each time. So I may still have the 16 combinations, but they're on treadles instead of levers. So I guess the main difference is, let's say for one pass that I'm going to go, I'm just making this up. Okay, then I'm going to do my pass. What just took me, however long that took me to do the levers, would have been my foot pressing on a treadle and bam, the shafts are all there. Then for my next one, I'm putting them all back. And then I'm looking at my chart. going with the next one. Now I can weave the next pick. But on my floor loom, I'm pressing a treadle and the shafts are going. So the floor loom is going to be ever so much faster. And also with the floor loom, you don't even have to put your shuttle down necessarily. I would with these because I'm using 2 colors in the wefts. So I do have to alternate the colors, so I'm putting a shuttle down. But if I was just weaving straight just with one weft color, then I'm just going to be back and forth, pressing back and forth, not having to put my shuttle down. I have to put my shuttle down every time because I need my hands to do this. So for me, I already have my dream loom envisioned, and it is a Louet Jane 32 shafts. I know, it's an extremely expensive loom, and it's a dobby loom. And so what that means is instead of even having a bunch of treadles at the bottom to press, you do all of your setup at the beginning at some pegs at the side. I'm not going to go into the whole thing right now, but it means that to change your shed each time, you're clicking one treadle. Click, click, click. How much faster is that going to be than choosing all of these levers? Now, if you love yourself a bit of slow weaving and you love to just totally envelop yourself in the process, and that these levers, you know, it's just a graceful part of the weaving for you, it is for me too. But having floor looms and having woven on floor looms quite a bit, that efficiency aspect does come into it, especially for something like the block double weave, where you're actually weaving 2 layers of cloth at once, one on top of the other. It is a slow weave, and so having treadles or having even one pedal, another way of setting up your shafts prior to the weaving so that everything is just, you're just going through the motions of weaving once you've got the setup in place. That really appeals to me. Now, there are tons of reasons why someone would choose a table loom over a floor loom. Some people just really love weaving on table looms, and that's great. What this table loom has done for me so far has opened up the idea of doing this kind of weaving, which, as I said, has been something I've wanted to do for so long. You could also choose a table loom because it's generally going to cost quite a bit less than a floor loom, and it's generally going to take up less space. So those are important things as well. I talked about portability before. This particular size is not so portable. The smaller sizes are. That's another thing. You can't just necessarily pack up a floor loom and chuck it in your car like the way you can a table loom. Before I forget, as I was planning this video, I had a thumbnail pop up on my YouTube feed that was a review of this loom by somebody else. It's by Marjorie Erickson. So I will link to her video down below so that you can go over and get her thoughts as well, which could be quite different to mine. So I will end with my overall thoughts on this loom. So far, I love it. I think it's a great loom. I'm really enjoying the way that it's opening up the possibilities for me. And I think I'm going to enjoy weaving on it for a long time, whether I end up getting that Megado or not. Now, I'm sure there's a bunch of things that I have missed. If you have any specific questions about this loom, about the way it operates, about what I'm doing here, any of this, please leave them in the comments down below. As long as your comment is polite and well meant, then I will get back to you. And until next time, whatever loom you happen to be weaving on, happy weaving.
you.